You're a newborn rabbit. Your eyes slowly open. Fur surrounds you. Your siblings move beside you, and your mother watches over the nest. Everything feels safe until you realize something is wrong. One sibling is gone, and your mother is eating what remains. Why is she doing it? Is she starving? Is she killing the weakest? Or is something much stranger happening? To understand it, we have to look at one of the darkest sides of animal parenting. For a newborn animal, there may be nothing more frightening than discovering that the creature responsible for protecting you can also become a source of danger. We naturally expect parents to protect their young. Birds feed their chicks, mammals defend their babies, and animals sometimes risk injury to keep their offspring alive. So when a parent kills or eats its own offspring, it seems to violate one of our most basic ideas about nature. But animals do not operate according to human ideas of cruelty, love, or morality. What looks horrifying from the outside can sometimes be connected to survival, energy, reproduction, and limited resources. There is an important distinction. Killing an infant is called infanticide. Eating an animal of the same species is cannibalism. When a parent consumes its own offspring, scientists may describe it as filial cannibalism. And this behavior is not equally common across animals. The rabbit in our opening is a dramatic way into the subject, not an indication that rabbit mothers routinely eat their babies. The phenomenon is better documented in certain fish, insects, spiders, and some mammals. The first explanation seems obvious: hunger. If a parent is starving, a helpless baby could become an available source of calories. And sometimes energy really is part of the answer. Producing offspring is expensive. Eggs require nutrients, pregnancy requires energy, milk production consumes resources, and guarding young takes time. When an animal's energy reserves become dangerously low, continuing to invest in every offspring may become difficult. But this is where the story becomes more interesting. Some animals do not consume their entire brood. They may eat only one or a few offspring while continuing to protect the rest. Why would that make sense? Imagine a parent has more babies than it can successfully support. Food is limited, and every mouth requires energy. Consuming part of the brood may allow the parent to recover nutrients while reducing competition among the survivors. The remaining offspring can potentially receive more food, space, and parental attention. This is sometimes called partial brood cannibalism, and it reveals an important principle of evolution. Survival does not always mean keeping every offspring alive at any cost. If resources are severely limited, investing everything into a large brood may result in many weak offspring dying. Under some circumstances, reducing the number of offspring can increase the chances that the survivors reach maturity. Fish provide some of the clearest examples. In several species, parents guard eggs or young and invest considerable effort into protecting them. Yet, under certain conditions, those same parents may consume some of their offspring. Researchers have proposed several explanations, including energy recovery, brood size, parental condition, and the likelihood that the remaining offspring will survive. The behavior may therefore look like destruction, while potentially functioning as a form of resource management. Another uncomfortable possibility is that not every offspring has the same chance of surviving. Some may be damaged, diseased, poorly developed, or unlikely to reach maturity. If resources are limited, investing heavily in offspring with very low survival prospects may provide little reproductive benefit. In some circumstances, consuming an offspring can return nutrients to the parent or the remaining brood. But we have to be careful here. It would be too simple to imagine an animal consciously thinking, "This one is weak, so I will sacrifice it." Evolution does not require that kind of reasoning. Natural selection can shape instincts and behaviors that respond to environmental signals without the animal understanding their evolutionary consequences. The parent does not need to know why a behavior benefits reproduction. It only needs a behavioral response that, under certain conditions, can increase reproductive success. There is another possibility. Sometimes the entire reproductive attempt is failing. Food may have disappeared. Predators may have destroyed much of the nest. The offspring may be unlikely to survive. Continuing to invest enormous amounts of energy into a doomed brood can become extremely costly. Consuming or abandoning the brood may allow the parent to recover resources and potentially reproduce again later. This introduces an important concept in evolutionary biology: current reproduction versus future reproduction. An animal has limited energy and limited time. Resources invested in one brood cannot always be invested somewhere else. If the chances of saving the current offspring become extremely low, preserving the parent's condition may increase the possibility of reproduction reproducing in the future. But hunger and energy are still not the whole story. In some animals, infanticide has nothing to do with parents trying to feed themselves. Instead, killing an infant can be connected to competition. An offspring may represent a competitor for food, territory, social status, or future reproductive opportunities. This becomes especially important when we look beyond parents consuming their own young and examine animals killing the young of other individuals. Chimpanzees provide a striking example. In wild populations, researchers have documented infants being attacked and killed, with the bodies sometimes being consumed. Such behavior can involve multiple factors, including competition and nutritional benefits. This reminds us that the same behavior can have very different underlying causes. An infant can be killed because it represents competition, while its body can simultaneously provide nutritional value. And then the animal kingdom takes this subject somewhere almost impossible to imagine. Some spiders have evolved forms of parental care in which the relationship eventually becomes completely reversed. Instead of the mother eating her offspring, the offspring eat the mother. This behavior is known as Matriphagy. In species such as Anaerobius ferox, the mother produces special eggs that function as food for her young. She feeds and cares for her developing offspring and eventually becomes part of their final food supply. At first, this sounds like the ultimate example of nature's cruelty, but biologically, it represents something very different. The mother is investing her resources into offspring that have a chance of surviving independently. Her body becomes one final source of nutrition, potentially giving her offspring the energy they need to continue growing. And suddenly, the story we started with begins to change. At the beginning, we saw a mother eating her baby and interpreted it through a human emotional framework. We saw betrayal, we saw cruelty, we saw a parent violating its responsibility, but evolution does not operate according to those categories. It operates through consequences. Energy is limited, food is uncertain, offspring compete, predators attack, seasons change. Reproduction has costs. That does not mean every case of animal cannibalism is adaptive or beneficial. That some cases may result from stress, abnormal conditions, captivity, physiological problems, or circumstances scientists do not yet fully understand. The behavior varies greatly between species, and researchers continue to debate the importance of different explanations. So the answer to our original question is not simply animals eat their babies because they are hungry. Sometimes hunger matters. Sometimes the parent is recovering energy. Sometimes a brood is too large for the available resources. Sometimes part of the brood is sacrificed while the rest receive a better chance of survival. Sometimes an entire reproductive attempt has become unlikely to succeed. Sometimes competition is involved, and in extraordinary cases. Parental investment can go so far that the parent itself eventually becomes food. The disturbing truth is that nature does not guarantee that every baby will survive. Evolution offers no promise that every parent will protect every offspring until adulthood. Instead, animal life is shaped by an endless struggle between limited resources and reproduction. So perhaps the darkest part of this story isn't that some animals eat their babies. It's that in nature, parenting itself can sometimes become a calculation of impossible choices. A parent may have too little food, too many offspring, too little energy, or too little time. And when those pressures collide, behavior that looks horrifying to us can sometimes emerge from the same biological force that created parental care in the first place, the struggle to keep life going. The mother in our opening may look like a predator, but step back far enough and the story becomes something much stranger. It is not simply about a parent killing a child. It is about survival, sacrifice, and the brutal economics of reproduction, and about how differently the natural world can look when we stop asking what is cruel and start asking why evolution made the behavior possible in the first place.